All right. This is something that I wanted to jot down here in the recording. Uh, when we got home, Joanna drew a picture of something she was seeing in her head, which was basically reminiscent of a Black Death plague doctor and the reasoning behind it. And Isaac basically told us there was this documentary on Amazon that he had me bookmarked some time ago, and we just never looked at it. It's a series of lectures called "The Black Death: World's Most Devastating Plague." There's roughly about 25 episodes, something like that. And I would encourage people to pay close attention, very close attention, to the very first episode, the intro of the whole thing. You'll see a trailer and then you'll see the episodes, and pay very, very close attention to the history of medieval society and it's mirroring today the way everything works with the four classifications of people, which would be warriors, merchants, workers, and religious people. The same thing that you see now. How it was intricately balanced, but the one thing that they were talking about also is medieval society just prior to the plague. I believe it was 1340-ish, somewhere in that area, had a global warming incident. 9 years later, 1349, you have full-blown Black Death that killed millions of people. What are people talking about now? Climate change? They're talking about, look what during COVID that's going on, for instance. Uh, Devastating businesses, devastating, supposedly a lot of dead people, but that's not what is actually occurring.
Well, I mean, what they're talking about with, again, when they talk about the merchants weren't the original class. You
No.
basically had, the feudal society set up like it was, but merchants arising from the worker class, ended up gaining more wealth, gaining more power.
Dominating
And
pretty well.
so, to think that maybe the higher classes maybe targeted them because they were feeling threatened by these lower class people that were making their way up, probably was,
Yeah, just like now, you have the businessmen that are the cabal banking families that are threatened by people trying to gain their own wealth and gain their own sense of power. What happens during COVID? You know how many small businesses I've seen go under? How many shops I've heard gone under? So many people quitting now because of COVID, basically draining all of their money and savings and livelihood over the past few months. Uh, Heard all of it, and they were these upper class people are heavily threatened by this. But also, what happened after the Black Death hit a conclusion? The Renaissance period, a period of enlightenment, period of innovation, invention, science. But the thing of it is, as the Galactics have told us, not only the Lyrans saying there would be a thought renaissance, but on the flip side of that, for business, there would be galactic and interstellar trade. Who best would be the interstellar trade would be the very businesses that went under. The ones that were trying to claim more resources and would have more power in the age of galactic trade. Who wants those resources? Those that would swoop in, take up the spaces of those businesses that just died, and pick up the pieces and enact their own agenda. This is what we've been sensing. Also, go back to the global warming thing. I'm thinking a certain virus would need a warmer environment in order to thrive more. COVID, that's just smart dust. I don't believe that was completely real thing. It became something, and it was activated through 5G, lowered the person's immunity so that they would get the nano
And again,
infection.
when
Yeah,
you say it's not nothing, you mean it wasn't naturally
wasn't
acquired.
naturally acquired.
I
Yes,
think you better be
hoax or
careful.
fabrication, in my mind, is something that was created. So clarification right there. Of course, real, but not real at the same time. More of a prop, a setup, like a movie. Think of it that way.
But it is harming people. So
Yes.
don't, you know what I mean? The point is that, you know, your belief system is that this was not naturally acquiring, that it was something that was there that was manipulated and released intentionally.
And
So that, but it is harming people. We're not saying it's not harming people.
no, no, not at all. Like false flags, they actually do harm people, and this is a false flag, but it's actually harming people. One thing I do want to point out, I know about the Black Death. Before it really started, there were these black hooded beings that were spotted spraying crops before people started getting sick. I always believed that was the Black Goo and or AI Nanotech, just exactly like what I've been spotting now for the past 4 years, being dumped down on people through chemtrailing, spraying, same thing. And I'm not out to spook anybody that's actually hearing this. Not the goal. But this is what Isaac led us to watch this documentary on this. Also, I believe he may have been the one putting the images in Joanna's head about the plague doctor. And I have been seeing images of the bird mask plague doctor images in my head for a bit now. I even have a wax mold that's the plague doctor.
But what
So
was
yeah.
interesting about the picture, I guess you'll show the picture. What was interesting about it is that, you know, a bunch of children and dogs were going up to this person. Now, the mask is probably going to look a little different than what you guys are normally used to seeing. But, you know, Chris did point out a point that it may be more of what it really looked like, because you think about if they were burning sage in this mask, it had to rise, and so maybe the beak would be pointed down a little bit more.
Yeah,
and
yeah, and they could just put
and
any odor in there,
and
anything.
it
Yeah,
wasn't necessarily this perfectly formed mask, because people would maybe be making them out of a burlap or fabric or something with this long beak on them that they kind of put over their head, so it may not look as beautifully perfect as some of these
kind of
paintings.
like a scarecrow looking thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and so it may have been something more like that. But I can tell you that you know, I was like, I'm not sure what I'm seeing, because I wasn't for sure whether I was seeing something that actually had a face like that. But then it looked like it was a mask that was put on. But it was a big person, male. I would say in this particular instance, the male was Caucasian. It doesn't mean that there weren't others, it just happened to be. But a very large, I think larger than normal male, very big, very broad too, in this particular scenario. All of these children were going up to this person, and they were not afraid of them, and neither did the dogs. It's like this was they liked him. It's like whatever the personality was of this being, this person or being, because again, I'm open that it could have been a human, or I'm open to that it could have been a galactic, you know. But whomever it was, the children and the animals liked him, and they weren't afraid with him. Now I'm looking at him going, "Who are you?" But you know, it's not like I got that this something horrible was happening to these children. In fact, it was just the opposite, which kind of again, you know, leads you to believe that you know, somehow this person was trying to help or protect the children. These may have been orphaned children, you know, because the parents had died or succumbed or whatever. I don't really know. But I first couldn't figure out what was going on. And then, you know, showing it to Chris and talking about it, then he remembered we haven't watched this series, and then we start watching it and we realize in the very, very first episode there is a lot of very important information for everyone to look at. I think, again, if this is them trying to recreate the same scenario, there's a couple of very important factors. First of all, the goal is to say no. Okay, it's kind of simple. Do you want this or not? I think what becomes hard for people is everyone gets frustrated. The one thing that we've been trying to talk about a lot happens to be our own community, those that feel they are trying to walk a spiritual path. And there's been a lot of anger within that community of feeling like other people are holding them back. It's really not a true statement. But again, I've always said that everything's been infiltrated. Everything has been skewed a little bit. And so you have to really, where are my own thoughts coming from? The thing about this is that if you thought that an illness was going to come through and it was potentially going to wipe out the people that you felt were of lower frequency, would you be for it? So it's an interesting thing because some people get so frustrated and mad, they'd be like, hell yeah, I'm for that. Get rid of all the riffraff.
Yeah, get all of the stupid people,
And
stuff
so
like
the
that. Yeah.
interesting thing for something like this is they need you to help co-create this. They need you.
Uh-huh.
They've spent a lot of time in divide and conquer types of thoughts that, some people, the divide and conquer who's worthy, who's not, who's better than, who's less than. And so, what a perfect time to now pull all the cards together to get the divide and separation in your own thought, because that starts to manifest and co-create. So this can't be done, I don't think, all the way without people's help in co-creating. But when people get mad and frustrated, they want to see all you horrible people, all you corrupt people, all you mean people. I want you guys all dead. And you don't realize that what you're really doing potentially is buying into a playbook, because you may think there's going to be a renaissance after this, but it's just going to be the same large key players that are
Mm-hmm.
going to come in and pretend to save you. And it's just going to be a recreation of a plague and a renaissance. And so you buy the same beings who have been recreating themselves over and
And over
over
and
and
over.
over again. So it's just going to be something for everyone to think about. Is this happening again? Is there an attempt? It worked once. Let's let it work again. There needs to be a culling. The sheep are too great in number. Let's cull them now and start all over so we maintain control. And then let's
Just like
get rid of the merchant group so that everybody has to buy our stuff. We're completely in control.
Just like also, yeah, medieval Europe when the merchant class boomed and also the population doubled. These aliens and the earlier Cabal more than likely felt threatened, and the church, all of them that were working together, felt threatened by the amount of people, and so they felt they had to be culled. This is something we don't want to happen again. It goes right back to the Georgia Guidestone timeline. The culling down to 500 million, also in accordance with nature, getting rid of useless officials and all of that nonsense, the useless eaters, all of that. Basically judging a whole classification of people beneath. And it's the people that are self-farming this. Um, and like I've said, we've said before, the farm was self-sustaining. Knowing that people would automatically judge each other and automatically cast stones at somebody they thought was lesser. It's happening right now. Enlightened versus stupid or unawakened, or black versus white, hoax COVID versus real COVID. Same thing. It's still somebody versus somebody. We've talked about the for and against conspiracy, but with this, it's an exact mirroring of history, almost pretty much right down to the timetable. And uh, beyond that, of course, they would have their fake Renaissance. Hero comes in and saves the day. Sorry, Q fans, gotta do this again. Um, this is hero comes in, saves the day, defeats the evil villain. We're going to have a Renaissance now. Now you're free to innovate. But what happened? The innovators that would have actually assisted with this have been wiped. Not all of them. I'm saying a lot have risen above this and will still continue to rise above this. And I believe a true thought renaissance, as the Lyrans always put it, will definitely come to pass. And I believe galactic trade, true galactic trade, and innovation and creativity, as the forest people like to always say, and these other galactic groups like to say, are going to come to pass. But we got to get rid of the fake uh, historical mirroring. We got to get rid of that. Got to see past this playette that's playing out. Granted, this is the Cabal contract. They're being told by their Dark Orion handlers that they have to play this out because these same Orions were there before in history to cause this. Those same beings, were the same ones, and they're just using the same playbook, hoping people don't look back to 1349 and a little before. They're hoping people won't look at it. Well, look at it, because history repeats if you don't know your history. It will always repeat, and the ones that are repeating it are the ones you got to look at. And again, still not trying to spook anybody, still not trying to dissuade people from a spiritual path, not even close.
No, it's
No.
just simple. Just say no.
Just say no to this
No,
repeating
we will
of
not do
history.
this.
Let the Cabal's train go careening off of a cliff or go careening into the brick wall, which is what's going to hit. Have that play out, but just say no to anything drastic left that is
And
going to
even if
take
you don't
place.
believe us, what's wrong with saying no to this if it's a potential repeating pattern?
Yeah.
Just say no. It's you can say Chris and Joanna are just a bunch of idiots. Well, fine, but what will be wrong with you saying no? I don't want any of this playing out again. What's
Yeah.
wrong with that? What is harmful in you just putting it out there that you just wouldn't want to see this repeating itself? There's
Nothing
nothing.
wrong with that,
There's
even if you don't
nothing,
believe us.
even if
Yeah.
you don't believe us. Just put that intention out there, and you can believe we're idiots until we're all gone. Doesn't bother me, but there's no reason why you can't put that intention out that you don't want a repeating pattern, and if this is one, you don't want to see it. And the answer is no.
And I believe why this has been this heavy leaning from the galactic community on us basically changing history. They've said that quite often. We're changing history, changing history.
All of us are
All of us in
changes.
changing history, yeah. And they've been leaning quite heavily on that. Now I know why they have been saying this. The actual Renaissance that's going to take place, again, not going to be the hero coming in. It's going to be all of us living in our passions, doing what we came in to do, being creative, and by saying no to this negative timeline, this overlay, let's just say. It's us saying no to this quite heavily, but not necessarily in a revolution sort of way. But now that you know that this mirroring of history is taking place and that it takes place in cyclical patterns, even then, just like with farming, it had to take place in cyclical patterns. Even now, all this is taking place in cyclical patterns. This is how these people and these beings operate. They're stuck within these cycles doing this. The Orions do this to gain energy at certain times of year. They even threw it off in the calendar so that people didn't know the real PowerPoints in the calendar. So they adapted it to Christian ideals instead of pagan ones. So the people are thrown off as to when to do this, but they still relatively fall within the period in order to gain certain energies. Now we have told people come October, November. This is what the Galactics are saying. A lot of this was going to change quite drastically. A course correction in the timeline.
But between now and then, it could get quite uncomfortable.
It could get quite uncomfortable. Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not trying to get you to co-create that.
No, but
No.
it will be the playing out of what they're going to play out, and they have cards still to pull. So you just need to understand that. But the answer is no, 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 no.
No, no, no. Yeah.
And so anyway, I guess the point of all this is if you have Amazon Prime, right? You
Yeah,
have
Amazon Prime.
look for the series called The Black Death, the world's most devastating plague. It's actually a part of a series of lectures done at a university setting. And again, probably, pay very close attention to the very first episode for some of the basics of how there is a parallel of experiences that are occurring now that occurred then. Look for the patterns, is what we're saying. Look for the patterns. And then, if you may see these similarities that will actually really have you questioning things. So that's all we want to do is give you guys some food for thought, something to look at since many people are still at home. It's a 23 or 24 part series. Start watching it and see what you think, if it's relevant to current present moment.
Yes, and another thing I want to point out, this goes back to a channeling that I did of the Earth Mother and the origin of Shungite as well. This plays a part in this as well because I put Shungite beeswax in the bird man mold. I was told to do that, and what is Shungite? It's the polar opposite, or the antibodies of the Earth that the Earth generated to get rid of the black goo. What is often associated with the Black Death, of course, black and goopy, type of symbolism. Grim Reaper, that's harvesting genes, harvesting energies. That's all associated back into this, the Harvesters and/or Dark Orion faction. This goes straight back to that. That's what I was being told with this. So Shungite is its polar opposite, even though they have similarities in kind of appearance, look, sort of in more of a symbolic way, but it's not the same thing. It's the polar opposite of what the Earth generated to fight this, antibodies. And I believe we're getting those antibodies and codes now to actually fight this, but we need to generate the codexes as we are becoming immune to these things to be able to also get rid of this negative timeline. And I was also told silver a long time ago mixed with shungite makes it a powerful combination, two incorruptible elements. So that's another thing that I found out will fight this as an external source. So thank you everybody for listening to this. This was just a major download that we got. Mixed with external historical sources, external galactic sources, and our own download capabilities from higher self. So thank you everybody. It is 8:41 p.m. Tuesday, June 30th, 2020. Thank you.